This is Al again. I'm right here in front of my 1984 Rolls-Royce Corniche. If somebody'd seen my previous video, I mentioned that the AC was blowing cold, but it wasn't blowing that cold. It was kind of, felt like it had a low charge. When I did turn the compressor on, I could see the compressor would engage. And on these GMA6 compressors, a lot of these cars have low pressure switches, so I'm guessing that the refrigerant level's low, but it's not low enough to trip the pressure switch. So I've attached my gauges here. I put the low side behind the compressor, and on the high side you can see it here next to I don't know where a brake booster would be, but I have no idea what that thing is. I know it's not a brake booster. So right now I'm going to tighten up the gauges, the hoses, and you can see that there is a charge in here. It's got about 80 psi. Now that's with the AC turned off, so that's not a with the AC engaged. And it's reading, 80 psi on both sides, which is what you'd expect to see, right? If the compressor isn't running, then the pressure should be equal on both sides of on both the high side and the low side. So far so good. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the AC on and see what it does. I'm guessing, looking at the gauges, that whoever had these hoses on had them on incorrectly. So that must be the high side, and this is the low side. The red cap that you see here was over this, and the blue cap that you see there was over that thing. So I'm guessing that they got that wrong. So I'm going to turn the AC off, and I'm going to swap the hoses around again, and so that I can get a decent reading. So I'm going to put it on pause for a second until I get this switched out, and then I'll come back to you guys. Alright guys, so whoever did the 134 conversion put the high side conversion fitting on the low side port and then the low side on the high side. So what I end up having to do, because obviously those ports are different, my AC hoses only fit one way. The blue fitting only fits on the port, on the blue port. So I swapped the hoses around here, so you can see that even though this is red, the hose is blue, so on and so forth. Well, that's because, whoever did this conversion was a moron. That's probably the best way to say it. And, so what you see is 30 psi on the low side, 100 psi on the high side. It's about 72 degrees right now here in Texas. I'm guessing should be closer to 150, 165 psi on the high side is what you should really be at. So this is definitely a low charge. So I'm gonna go and get my juggle free on, and I'll come right back, and then we'll start charging up the system. I usually go, this is the rule of thumb, because the right way to charge the system up is to charge it by weight, okay? But in order to charge it by weight, you have to evacuate the entire AC system, pull a vacuum, and then go back and charge it. And then you really want to charge it with R12, because R134A has is of a different density. So it runs at a higher pressure. You shouldn't be putting the same amount of R134As. You should R12. You should be about 10% maybe even 20% less. So because of that, I usually go by pressures. I use the rule of thumb, which is what I was taught, which is to make sure that your high side is between 2 to 2.5 times the ambient temperature. Ambient temperature right now is around 70 degrees, so talk about 160. I'd probably top it up to 160. Also, you really don't want to go past 45 psi on a GMA6 compressor. I know that just because just about every other car that I own, especially if it's a V8 Mercedes that was built in the 70s and the early 80s, has an A6 compressor. So I've been around them for a long time. So that's my, there's no absolute science to this. It's just what what I've experienced and what I'm used to. If you guys think something different, that's fine. I don't disagree with you. That's how I know it. And the old, the usual disclaimer stuff. If you're charging it, you're doing it at your own risk. If you want it done perfect, if you want a perfect result with warranty, go take it to an AC professional and they'll give you a warranty. So that's the disclaimer. In any case, I'm going to pause it again. I'm going to get my jug. I'm going to come back and we're going to start charging it. I'm going to watch it charge up, and then we'll take it from there. All right, back again. So my 134A jug's there. I'm going to open up the valve. I'm going to turn it on very gently and open the valve. I'll leave it here at 40 psi, and I'm just going to let the system charge. And I don't have an infrared thermometer with me, so I'm going to play this by ear and just basically feel the vents. But you can see that the high side is filling up slowly. Okay, I'm going to set it to high. I'm going to see how well this works, and if it works well, great. If it doesn't work so well, what I'll probably do is switch back to R12. So I do have some R12, and here in Texas it can get really hot. It can get up to like 110 degrees, and it's pretty humid as well. So sometimes it's R134A doesn't work that well when the temperatures reach above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'll see how this works. I'll use the 134 to identify if there's any leaks. I'm hoping that they used ester oil and not PAG oil when they did the conversion. It seems like the conversion was done by somebody who bought a kit from Walmart. So it may be a smart thing just to do evacuate the system and pull a vacuum and charge it back up again anyway. But I'm going to see how it behaves. Okay, so I've shut the taps off. I'm now back here. You still, the low side's still pretty low pressure, which is great. It's at 30 psi. High side's right now at about 175, which I think is fine. So let's go and see what the temperatures are like. And the temps are definitely colder. I mean, it's not ice cold, but it's like a million times better than it was before. And bearing in mind that we're sitting at idle. The car's not moving, so there's no air going through the condenser except what the electric fan may give. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely pretty nice. You know, you can see temperature says 27 degrees Celsius, so you know, it's a pretty warm day outside. So, you know, all in all, I think this car actually runs pretty nicely with R12. Now, of course, you know, when it hits 40, sorry, with 134A, when it hits 40, I may rethink that. That, you know, have a different judgment on that. But yeah, I mean, right now I'm putting my hands on it, and as I keep my hands on it, it's just getting colder and colder and colder, even though I've turned the taps off on the Freon. So you know, it's not receiving any more AC. So I shut the tap off, okay, and then I open the tap here, and I let all the remaining Freon get sucked in that's in this hose, and then that way you're not wasting any of the Freon that you have in your AC hose. It just goes and eats it in. Pressure is still, you know, pretty good. It's 34 psi on the low side, 175 on the high side. System seems to be functioning nicely. So all in all, you know, I'm pretty happy. It's blowing nice and cold. When I get my infrared thermometer, I'll bring it with me because I got to do some other tests with it, based on some of the discussions that we've had on the forum about the temperature sensors. I'll measure the AC temperature. So I'm going to stop the video right now. I'm going to turn it back on. I'm going to shut the engine off and do that brake test that Gene suggested that I do yesterday. I ran that brake test, but without running the engine. The engine's been idling for the last at least 15 minutes, so I'll run the brake test again now. Thanks very much, guys. Message me if you have any questions.